5 hours to reach this ranger outpost that we spoke about on the edge of the desert. And our guide told the military escort that we were going to the monastery to pray, no other reason. And we bribed the officer to let us go on our own. In any case, they couldn't go out into the desert. But they said that we have to go with one of the rangers, who was like a police sort of a ranger, who would take us out and show us the way to get to this monastery, because we couldn't get there. There was no roads. There was nothing.
Well, plus they don't want like the incident of you going out there, getting stuck in a sand dune, and them having to go rescue you. They just figured they'll send one of the guys with you.
Exactly. So the rangers come with us. Yeah, it took about 2.5 hours or a couple of hours to get there, because one of our vehicles, even with a ranger in it, got stuck in the sand. We actually got stuck. I was a bit nervous. I thought, wow, how long are we going to get stuck here for? But fortunately, before we left, I suggested we buy some ropes in case one of us gets stuck so the other vehicle can pull him out. And luckily we did, because we could pull him out. One of the drivers, one of the guys, that's the guy from the Switzerland, he was a very good driver. He'd done a lot of driving on the sand, so he knew how to drive. But the other guy from Wales, he was good, but he wasn't that good. We got stuck. Anyhow, just unfortunate. But we arrived in the monks' caves by about nightfall. It was just getting dark, actually. And after showing him the slip of paper, one of the monks, he accepted us, and he showed it to the father there, and we all went into one of the chapels, which was cut into the rock in the big cave. Well, not that big, but a cave. And we stayed there for their prayers. It was all in Arabic. We couldn't understand it, but we did our own prayers when we were in there. And afterwards, we told them a little about what we're doing. And, I mean, we could trust the monks, and we could tell them what we're doing and why we were there. And we pointed out where we wanted to go. That's in the westerly direction from where the cave was. And we were surprised when they said that they always knew there was something spiritual out in that direction, but they never had the facilities to go out there. And I said, what do you mean something spiritual? They said, well, we came out to this area because we know there's something here, something spiritual to make us come to open up our monastery. Well, a few hundred years ago, they were told that there's something out there. This is why we've got to build the monastery out this area.
Wow.
So we were offered a large cave to sleep in. We all slept in a big cave. When you think of the cave, it's just like a big room. It was all well done. There was beds there, and beds were made out of stone with mattresses on top and stuff like that there. There was no lighting in there, so we had candles and everything were there. But fortunately, where these monks were, they had an actual toilet and water system. They had to actually carry their water up from an oasis, which was about a mile away. They had to truck it up every day because they never had water where they were. Right. They also showed us a cave nearby where they were erecting a chapel. They found a cave. This was quite interesting. What they did, they found a large cave out in the desert. One of the monks found it near where they were, about half a mile away, and it had a very low ceiling. And a miracle happened because they thought it'd make a nice chapel for them, but the ceiling was too low. But when they went back about a month later to inspect it again, they found that a miracle happened, that the ceiling collapsed. And they dug it all out, and they found that after digging it all out, it took them quite a few months, and they've got about 35 monks who were in this monastery. They dug it all out, and they found that the ceiling was then about 12 feet high. It was like a miracle happened. It was just cool. Anyway, the following day, we went out to the direction to where we thought the hill would be. And after a couple of hours, we encountered a sandstorm. We get a sandstorm out in the desert. You don't know what can happen.
Right. You better head for the cave if that happens.
We're trying to head back home because the next day we had to go back to Cairo because one of the guy's girlfriend, we had to meet him in Cairo, and we were already a few days overdue because we went to the wrong monastery the first day. So we thought we'd start heading back to the caves. But before we left, we clambered 30 foot, that was quite hard, of a huge sand dune, because we'd stopped in front of this big sand dune, and to go around it would have been a long way, so we thought, let's get to the top and see what the terrain looked like from the top. And when we got to the top, through binoculars, we were able to glimpse a pyramid-shaped hill way out in the distance. It was way out, probably about, maybe about 8-9 miles away. So we planned on going back to Egypt the next year. We thought, we'll all go back next year and see if we know where we got to go and everything else, and hopefully the weather will be good, and we'll spend more time there. But unfortunately, well, it wasn't unfortunate, two of the group that went with us, a couple of months later, went back without telling me, as I presume they wanted to find the Ark for their own purposes. And they never even told me they're going to go out there.
Right, they just made their own plans, but
didn't made their own plans, and they just went off on their own. I found this out afterwards, and I was upset at the time, but however, they were unable to get to that hill. They couldn't get there.
Okay, so you found out that they didn't make it.
That they couldn't make it, and since then, well, a year or so later, one of them died, and the other went out again, and he still couldn't find it. Wow. No doubt they're not meant to find the hill, or possibly to find the Ark.
Or the cave, for that matter. Did you end up going back to Egypt?
Oh, yeah. The following year, I went back to Egypt with the man that introduced me to that Mormon scientist I spoke about in Las Vegas. He seemed a good guy. He was a black guy, good guy. And I thought he was a bit spiritual when I found that later. And I said, so how would you like to come with me? I'll pay for your trip to come out with us. Oh, and which we did. We went out to Egypt, and we got our driver to take us out again on the old 4x4, because he was familiar with the desert. And he knew the way how to get to the cave area without having a police escort. In other words, he avoided all the roadblocks. Mm-hmm. And he had he not only was a good driver, but he had all his navigation with him, and he was also a mechanic. So if the thing broke down, we'd be okay, because it broke down with only one vehicle and something happened to the guy, we'd be dead.
You're in trouble. That's it. You're done. You're going to die. Yeah. You're not going to be able to make it back out of there.
Yeah, I mean, if I told my wife that I'm going out there and this could happen, she'd say, don't go. Okay, so after giving the coordinates to the monk's cave, because we'd had the coordinates of that from the other guys, we knew exactly where it was, we was able to get there, and we entered the desert, avoiding all the roadblocks, and we spent the night with the monks. And actually, I cooked, there was 35 of them, and I cooked them a meal, because they'd been used to having their same food every sort of day, the monk's food, and I says, come on, I'm going to cook you a meal, because I'm not bad at cooking. Well, I say so anyway. My wife doesn't. Anyhow, the following morning, we headed out in the direction of the hill, coordinates, and the hill that got on that website. However, I got very disappointed, because when we got there, I found that the guy who took the picture had set his camera up on the ground, and the angle that he took it wasn't a hill, it was a small mound, but it was in front of his camera lens, so it looked like a huge hill. But when we got there, we got the coordinates, it wasn't. It was just this mound. And I thought, gee whiz, now we've got the wrong thing. It's a waste of time. It's not the pyramid hill we wanted to get to. So even if those guys did get out to that hill,
they would have went in the wrong direction.
Probably it was a divine way or something for them to go in the wrong direction. They weren't meant to get out there.
Divine misdirection.
Yeah. It was probably it was a divine, decoy or whatever you want to call it, for the group to get to that cave. But we continued on. We spent a week surveying the nearby desert, but we couldn't find any caves or any pyramid hill. Although we did find something quite interesting. Stuck in the middle of the desert, and you probably saw the picture of it, and it's in the book, was a tree, a blooming tree. I must say blooming, had all the leaves on it. One tree stuck in the middle of the desert, and we took a picture of it. And believe it or not, that tree was an acacia, made out of acacia wood.
Yeah, the same wood made that made the ark.
Yeah. It was acacia tree, but you saw the picture.
Yep.
It could have been that big tree which I channeled in Israel, that we'd be passing a big tree en route.
Right.
And, it could have been that tree. We don't know, but it could have been. Anyhow, the other thing we passed was something also spectacular, and it was a gigantic weathered limestone structure. And it not only resembled the head of the Sphinx, which was on it, but it also had a flat back and body and measured very similar to the Sphinx. And it also faced the same direction of the Sphinx, pointing with a face showing east. No one knows it's there. We've got the coordinates of it. Obviously, it has to be investigated sometime or other, but I haven't told many people nobody knows the coordinates anyway. Right. Anyway, we camped overnight with the monks because we couldn't find anything. And when we camped with the monks, one of the monks told us that there was a guy living in Cairo that stayed with them, that explored the area, and he mentioned that he found a cave with bones around it. And I thought, that's interesting. And the guy was living in Cairo. So on our way back to Cairo, we stopped by. Actually, we contacted him they gave us his mobile phone. We contacted him, and he says, come and visit him in his apartment where he was. And he says, yeah, I can show you. I haven't been out there for quite a few years, but I did see this cave. And it had all bones around. And I says, well, did you go inside? He says, no, when I saw all the bones around the cave, I was on my own. I got scared and I left. I didn't want to stay around there. But he thinks he can find it. He says, but if I find it for you, I'll come out there, but I want $500. And I didn't argue with the guy. I thought, well, right. You know, $500, it's a lot of money, but if he can find the cave, that's great. That would be fine. And I couldn't do it there and then because I had to go back to Spain a few days later, and I had to go and see Adele in the pyramids. Adele was the guy in charge of the Giza pyramids I mentioned. He was the director of the pyramids. So I went out and I said to the guy, well, we come out to Egypt again, I'll contact you, and I'll pay the $500 and let's find that cave because we need to find it, sort of thing. I didn't tell him why we wanted to find it. I just said we're looking for a cave with bones around. Anyhow, I went out to meet Adele when we got back to Cairo, and I said, I'd like to see the second pyramid. I want to go into, not the Great Pyramid, that's where the Queen's Chamber was, but I had a feeling I wanted to go into the second pyramid, which is called the Kharfu Pyramid. And after it's closed to the public, I says, can I go in there? Can I go alone? He says, yeah, no problem. And without knowing why, I just said to him, Adele, you know, when I come back out of that pyramid, I'm going to tell you something information about the Sphinx. He says, what makes you say that? I said, I don't know. I just feel I've got to tell you something about the Sphinx. Off I went into the pyramid. I went in and looked around. As I started coming out, I crawled again into one of the chambers. When I came out, it dawned on me that another Sphinx would be buried next to the actual Sphinx. You saw a picture of that, I think, from the book, one page in the book, yeah. So I went back and I said to Adele, you know, it seems there's